Project 2029 is a grassroots, citizen-led effort to reclaim our democracy. They are not affiliated with or supported by any political party or political action group. Their organizers are unpaid, and they do the work because of their civic and moral values and their hope for America. From Project2029.me, today we have their communications chief, Susan Swords, and their founder, Jake Orlowitz. Susan, why don't you introduce yourself?
Thank you, Travis, and hello to everyone. Yes, as Travis said, my name is Susan Swords. I'm the communications chief for Project 2029. I'm a lifelong communications professional, now retired. My last position was as the Assistant Director of Public Information for the New Jersey Office of Legislative Services, which was a nonpartisan arm of the New Jersey State Legislature. I worked in a number of other state agencies, either doing public information, public relations, or communications. So that's been my background, and I am doing my best to translate all of those skills to promoting Project 2029.
Fantastic. Thank you. And Jake?
Well, I don't have a bio so much as a couple of snapshots from my life. You know, I was the star baseball pitcher, and then I was the wrestling star, and then I was the, first in my class in high school. And then I went to a little school called Wesleyan University, steeped in liberal politics, but I studied classics of the European Enlightenment. And then I went to Colorado because I wanted to get out of the suburbs, and I started skiing, and then I pretty much lost my mind. So I had this period, this kind of literally and psychologically dark period where I just was lost. And I needed help, and I was resistant to getting it. And when I got it, thank God, thankfully, I came back with a vengeance. I was all of a sudden eager to use my political chops and intellectual history understanding to work on this open project that you may have heard of called Wikipedia. And I became one of the foremost Wikipedia editors in this open community sharing knowledge for no money. And then I built a library for Wikipedia editors as part of the nonprofit Wikimedia Foundation. And then I got involved in all kinds of interesting and thorny political debates, kind of reignited my passion for politics and political theory. And that led to a private consultancy where I work with museums and nonprofits on Wikipedia issues that they're having and how to engage with the community, and work on content or images or whatever tools, whatever kind of projects they're interested in. But I'll pause it there because I'm also now the founder and technically CEO of Project 2029, and I'm sure you have some question of where did that come from?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's go back to the genesis of the idea. Where did you come up with the idea that you wanted to do something about this?
It was a moment of desperation. It was a moment of darkness that I think we have all felt, where you're scrolling through the news and your soul is sinking into the abyss. And I felt depressed. And this is just when protests were starting to happen in 2025. It was around February. And I really was not motivated to get out into the streets. In fact, I was unmotivated or anti-motivated. I just wanted to hide. And I realized that psychological disposition was exactly where the current administration wanted us to be, is to feel paralyzed and disempowered and overwhelmed from flooding the zone, and to just put your hands up and surrender. And basically, I just realized that I couldn't do that, but I also couldn't merely engage with this regime from the news. So I just happened to come across like a literal meme, a sketch of something that said Project 2029 and had 7 policy ideas, just kind of grassroots nuts and bolts policy ideas. And I thought, oh my God, why aren't we doing Project 2029? Why aren't we doing that? Like 2025, Project 2025, in the spirit of Hitler being a good orator, it worked. It was a bad bad group of people doing bad things to the country for bad ends, but it was well organized. And we need to do something like that for good, for the people, for the common man and woman and person and they and them. And we need to be. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, I feel uplifted. I'm like, let me throw something together and then throw it out into the internet, particularly on Blue Sky, which was just forming, and just see if it gets any traction. And it did.
Fantastic. And there's a couple of things I like there is there's the, as you said, the common response to throw up your hands. The next level response is people screaming back at the abyss, going on social media and venting their frustration and raising awareness that at this point, like, I think everybody's got awareness. I understand the desire to do it, but it can take the place of real action. So you made that leap from what we really need here is not more shouting into the void, but we need something that we're fighting for instead of just what we're fighting against. And you probably need some of both, but there's not as many people delineating and outlining and making plans of what we should fight for. So I like that. And to your other point about, I will give Project 2025 its due, is they were out in the open and they said, this is exactly what we want to do. And my whole life, I've always heard people complaining, politicians don't tell us what they're going to do. We never know what we're voting for. And here was a case where they came right out and said it. And they had a detailed plan. And as much as the people that were running for office ran from it, they decided that they were actually going to implement it. So I know there's some kind of, I don't know about wanting to pick that nomenclature, putting that name behind it because it harkens back to Project 2025, but it doesn't matter. Like, the core good idea is you've got to have a plan. You've got to have a more cohesive vision than I want affordable housing. I want better healthcare. I want to raise minimum wage. You need to have a more comprehensive plan because we've got a lot of stuff we need to do.
Yeah.
So that is great. So you're Susan.
Yeah, I wanted to underscore Jake's point regarding the group that comprises Project 2029. If you were to talk to more people than just me and Jake, the common thing you would hear is, I had to do something. I can write my representatives, I can show up to protests, I can join a great group like Indivisible, but I really felt like I had to do something concrete. That was my motivation for joining, and you will hear that from just about everyone else, and how grateful they are that now we've got this, that we can work on, that we really feel like we are working towards something good, something better, and you feel like you're being productive while the whole world is falling into pieces around us.
Right. Jake?
And, I consider myself part of the left broadly construed, and I share this with love, but there were some movements like Occupy, which had a great slogan and a good kind of optical game, but no clear, the common complaint was no clear demands. And if you even ask like historians of nonviolent protest without demands, protest without plans, without vision and direction doesn't affect change. So we view ourselves as complementary to Indivisible and 5051. They are, and even just the self-governed or self-organized groups like in Minnesota right now, it takes courage to get out into the street, and there's a bravery and a revelry there, but it's not enough to get out the vote. It's not enough to present it's not enough to get you a coherent governing vision. And that's often a very different kind of work than mobilizing direct action.
Yeah, exactly. It takes all kinds. Right. We need people to be resisting and on the streets and providing mutual aid to impacted communities and raising awareness. And we need people doing the work behind the scenes to say, okay, we don't like this. What does the next vision look like? And it, again, to the point of non-action and other, like raising awareness, is it was very easy, and it still is, to say, well, somebody should be doing something about this. And why don't the Democrats have a plan? And it's like, we are the progressives. We are the left. We are the Democrats. We are the people that want a plan. We shouldn't be waiting for some official party. To some extent, we have to tell the party, this is what we want, right? They are also always looking to see what do people want so they can get elected. And we have to be vocal about organizing around this is what it should be and not waiting for some mythical other to tell us what that is. Go ahead.
The Republicans Party had a rule like you never criticize another Republican. First of all, our coalition is not just from the left, and it's not just from the progressive left or the kind of Bernie Sanders left, but he's a great example of, a motivating politician. But what I will say is many of us share frustrations with the opposition party, known as the Democrats. We may have voted for them, many of us, for most of our lives, but we have not felt like the opposition to the regime currently in power has been sufficient. And so we are not only not affiliated with the Republicans or the Democrats, we're not really happy with either. We really think that most people want something better than what's been offered in the past.
Oh yeah, I would agree, right? So it's the independents that aren't in the system. It's once you can talk to people about the policies they're interested in, there's a lot of very popular policies that neither party is really talking about or will work to implement. Right. And I assume that's kind of the space you're speaking to in terms of like there's popular policies that we should be doing that nobody will even touch, Republican or Democrat.
Yeah, not in the mainstream of either party, maybe on the fringes. But, I was thinking about this, like if someone forced me to pick a single politician that holds our approximate views, and I couldn't think of one. But I thought like, well, if you like somehow like merged the DNA of Bernie Sanders and Pete Buttigieg, it would get about 80% of where we're trying to go. But of course you have to do that merging, which is actually quite complicated. Sometimes moderates and progressives fight harder than progressives and the MAGA folks. You can have the most internecine battles with your friends and neighbors over just slight differences. And that's part of what we try to avoid. We try and focus on big picture direction. We try, and it's a constant challenge that I feel responsible for steering. We try not to get bogged down in the theoretical, the academic, not that we are evidence and research based, but we try not to get bogged down in minutia because people are waiting. People are suffering. People are starving and dying. And like, this is not a time for waiting until we get it perfect. Exactly.
Right on. So the effort at this point, there are, what do you call them? The pillars of the platform. What are the pillars of the platform today?
So this is since the beginning in February of 2025, there were 27 pillars, and they've remained fairly consistent. 27 is a lot, but we have a big, complicated country we need to govern well. So I'm going to tell you the buckets that the pillars are in, and then maybe call out a couple. Okay. The first is about making government work. So, this is about everything from term limits to having a robust civil service to making sure that votes are equally counted. And by that, I don't mean literally counted, but that they have the same weight in the Electoral College. And then fundamentally, at the top of the list is getting money out of politics, because you can't have free and fair elections until, Citizens United is just booted. And now we're seeing the fruits of that with billions of dollars flowing into elections. It's just, if you wanted to create a situation where democracy would be trampled on, this is it. And so making government work is first, because otherwise we're going to be right back in the situation.
So is that first in terms of priority, or just first in terms of the first you mentioned?
I think it's a necessary condition. It may not be the first because it requires like actual Supreme Court overrule, but how you get there, these are not in order.
Okay.
I think it's first if you asked Lawrence Lessig, who's a great scholar, first from the tech space, tech law, but who moved into politics, he had a phrase called, you have to attack the problem at the root. And the root problem of all other problems in our democracy is money in politics. So in that sense, it's first. But I think we're open, should we have the ability to influence the democratic or governing agenda in some fashion or individual politicians' agenda? We're pragmatic. I think that's a term that defines us quite well. I view myself as a progressive personally. Some of us are centrists. Some of us are independents. We have people of faith. We have vets, veterans. We have doctors and journalists and all kinds of folks. But I personally am a progressive, just steeped in that. And yet I view myself as pragmatic rather than dogmatic. So we'll take the wins where we can get them. And some wins are also going to come from someone like me saying, okay, I'm going to reach further across the aisle than I'm used to and form alliances that are not unthinkable, but maybe a little bit uncomfortable because I recognize the humanity and the shared burden in other people in the country who don't think just like me. And together we'll get something done which will protect our country. Like if we're split, if we're evenly divided, even 60-40, we're very, very vulnerable to authoritarianism and fascism, like of the real kind, not the hyperbole kind, but the actual kind, the kind we learn about in history books and are terrified of, the kind that, my friends from Venezuela, because I work on Wikipedia, I have friends from all over the world, but my friends from Venezuela and other countries have experienced directly what authoritarianism is. We are like inches away from it. And so this is, again, no time for purity tests.
Yeah, and I agree. There's a pragmatic and the dogmatic, and from a dogmatic perspective, you really need to fix the machinery that makes laws if you're going to make significant progress with laws. But the pragmatic is that may not be a lever you can get pulled far enough right away, and you need to make progress without delay. You can't say this is the order I want to do it in. So, yeah. What are the other buckets of pillars then?
I mean, obviously economics, as they say, it's economics stupid. That's what wins elections. But really economics is about justice. It's about paying fair share of taxes, whether that means realigning tax brackets or a wealth tax. It's about strengthening the social safety net. It's about robust free education or subsidized education available throughout stages of life, from early childhood education all the way through vocational training for those who don't want to go on to a secondary degree in academia. And also things like we have a pillar around just valuing devalued work. Like if you are in a country in, God forbid I hold up Europe as a paragon, but if you're in Europe and someone is a janitor, they have dignity. They have a fair wage. They are not treated as scum of the earth servants. So we need to hold up those who do service jobs, those who work with children and the elderly, those who teach. You could talk forever about the value of teachers and how underpaid they are. So it's about economic opportunity and economic justice of the humankind, not economic justice of the kind you'd find in an Econ 101 textbook. Okay, so the second is about security. And this is essential. You can't, and especially as a progressive, progressives ignore security at their peril. You can't feel safe. You can't be safe if your data isn't safe, if your climate is falling apart, and starting to attack you back. If there are mass shootings in your schools, which of course relates to gun control, if there's not, human security is not just about, I mean, this is an understatement. It's not just about guns. It's also about healthcare. Cancer will kill you more often than a gun will, but we don't treat healthcare as a right or as a human need, and yet it is. And that's regardless of your...
It's treated as a profit center in the United States.
That's very true. It is. But we also believe, not to be completely heads in the sand, that we do need to have strong borders. But not just strong borders so that you can have people detained in cages. I mean, we're talking about strong borders with pathways to citizenship. Like real pathways. And for things like groups like Dreamers, who have been here since they were 2, 3, 4, 5 years old, enough is enough when it comes to keeping people in this horrific limbo of whether or not they're citizens. And you see now with ICE, what it exposes those people to. If you can take the citizenship level down just a notch, then you can abuse your power with a kind of impunity that shouldn't be there.
Right. Good point.
And then the last bucket is about what we call justice and participation. These are aspirations that are fundamental to democracy and to the country, to the founding of the country, ensuring the rule of law is applied equally to all people. You shouldn't have to say it, but we do because it's not. Also, there is just a horrid excess of incarcerated nonviolent people in our country because prisons are also profit centers now. And drugs and addiction are profit centers. We are sending people with drug abuse disorders that don't harm anyone but themselves, for the most part, treat secondary crimes secondarily, and they need rehabilitation and harm reduction. And this has worked in other countries. In fact, a lot of these ideas have worked in other countries. If you look around the world and take inspiration rather than kind of fear and derision from it, very little on this list is actually radical. It's just about, can every person participate fully in American life? I mean, that is a beautiful goal. Who wouldn't want that? I don't understand.
Yeah, and that's a great point. We don't need to do like some decade-long research project to figure out how to tackle these problems. We need an awareness of how they're tackled elsewhere and an understanding that we're not perfect, we could be better, and we can do these things. We absolutely can. So yeah, that's a great point. You guys don't necessarily have to reinvent the wheel here. It's just kind of pulling in, getting that framework of pillars and buckets and prioritization of what's important, and then starting to fill in those gaps. So now, Susan, maybe you can pivot to you for a little bit here. Let's talk about how people can participate in Project 2029.
Absolutely. And thank you for bringing that up because we are always looking for good volunteers. We have openings for volunteers in just about every area. In my area of communications, we could certainly use people who might like to donate their time to help with our social media, to help with some of our media outreach, to help write blogs on subject matters, not just our policies, but current events. We've had a couple. We just had someone who submitted he's a former Minnesotan, and he submitted a really good, heartfelt blog on everything that's going on in there. I'm not done editing it yet, but it will get posted soon. We have a former journalist who wrote some very good pieces on lesser known parts of local government that affect all our lives, things like school boards and sheriff's offices and things like that, and now particularly how they would interact with ICE. So there's opportunities to write. There's opportunities to do social media. If you're not a writer, there's opportunities to help with some media outreach. We have a marketing group that's working on some branding things to help us refine our message and get that out there to the media and to the public. We also have we've got an outreach group that is a small but very hardworking group that is trying to liaison with other nonprofits, other allied groups that have similar interests to us, not just in general, but in specific, people who may deal with immigration rights, people who may deal with healthcare. We're working up a healthcare policy now, which is a huge one. So we've been talking with some different groups to exchange information and resources with them. If someone would like to help with that, great. Just, it's all on our website. You can sign up on our website. We can use people even with some more different types of skills and backgrounds. Legal, if you want to make sure that we're not running afoul of anything that might get us in trouble legally, financial, we are receiving donations that are just strictly people donating their money through our website, like just individual donors. To help manage those kinds of things. There's many, many types. We have people who would be very helpful if they could, volunteers who would be very helpful with doing like data analysis to look at where we're aiming our efforts and are we really getting a good bang for our buck. I don't think we've turned too many people away. We get a lot of great resumes in and we've gotten pretty good at finding places for them. We've had so many wonderful volunteers, as I said, all with the same goals and the same desire to really set this country straight and get everybody on a better path to benefit the citizens of this country. So we've really been very fortunate in that we've had quite a few wonderful people, lots of subject matter experts. Unsurprisingly, quite a few former federal employees who may not be working for the federal government anymore have a wealth of experience and knowledge that have been helping us, particularly in framing the policies. So anyone who has that type of experience, or if you're a teacher and you're like, I'd like to help, what can I do? Contact us. We'll talk to you and we'll figure out where we can put you. Jake, did I miss anything?
No, I think the one thing I wanted to call out there is that former people that worked in federal government or former politicians, when Project 2025 was developed, they had like 400 people were part of that plan. Yeah. They spent millions of dollars, and a lot of the people had very specific experience that could help get the details in there on the types of levers you would pull and how one thing could lead to another. And for people with that experience to get involved is absolutely invaluable to take an idea that, again, to Jake's point, we've seen it work in other countries, but how can we get that through the system? You have to know the system today as it's broke and how you can navigate it.
Absolutely. They and many of them function very well and did their jobs very well. So they lend that expertise to us as well, to be able to look at something and say, well, this particular system is, it's really taken a nosedive under this current administration. We were running it well before. This is what we can do to help fix it again. So their input has been really valuable, as well as their subject matter expertise.
Cool.
I'll just, without associating any of our volunteers, we do, keep privacy to the extent that we can. We don't share our full volunteer list, although our leadership and board are on our website.
Right.
But there's so here's the breakdown. We have about 5,000 members in our project. About 150 of them are organizers. And we've raised about $5,000 in small dollar donations. I think the biggest donation we ever got was $100. So it's essential to us, although we do want to raise funds, more funds. It's essential to us to not be captured by big money. We've done these thought experiments. If some liberal or centrist or just concerned right wing but anti-authoritarian says, "Well, I'll give you $1 million. You're doing it right," we would not take that money. We are very, very wary of the power, the corrupting influence of money. And, it's important to us, maybe a little naive, but really, really, really important to us to stay free of, Washington called entangling alliances. And I'll just say, some of the departments that people have joined us from, many of them were cut viciously from DOGE. The NIH, the Department of Energy. We have some folks who have worked on the good side of the finance regulation sector with the SEC. We have folks who worked at I'm trying to blank now. But a variety.
We have some USAID. I think some people who are very knowledgeable in that area also.
USAID, absolutely.
USAID, yeah, which is something, that was also cut.
Again, multiple veterans who have been a part of the Department of Defense in that sense, and not only bring their skills as soldiers, but they bring an understanding of how large bureaucracies function at scale. So we love people from the government sector. The only thing we can't offer them is much or any money, which is unfortunately what a lot of government or ex-government employees need right now is jobs.
Yeah. And it's on the topic of money. It obviously, again, pragmatically, it's valuable. You can raise awareness. You can get people who maybe want to contribute but need to take care of necessities. They could potentially have more time to contribute, but at the same time, like, if it becomes a money game, you're not going to be able to compete with the kinds of interests that are already playing with Democrats and Republicans. But if you can compete with people and get people to help spread the word, that is as good as money if you're thinking about using money to raise awareness. The more people that can donate expertise, you almost need more people to donate expertise if you can't pay people to give all of their time. Which I would think some of that, how do you see some of your work at Wikipedia and some of the coordination work you did with Wikipedia Library? Do you think that gives you a little bit more ability to pull that type of collaboration off with a distributed volunteer group like this?
Oh, I think it's essential. I think I received the best training in the world for doing something like this. I'll speak directly to Wikipedia and then how some of those skills transferred. But on Wikipedia, anyone can contribute. Anyone can counter or revert a contribution. Everyone is at their computer. You're never interacting with these people in person for the most part, and you may not know who they actually are. You judge people based on their contributions and their integrity as demonstrated by what they do. And so this has allowed me to trust people. I've never met Susan, by example, but I go to her with hard questions and I say, help me, I'm struggling with this. You're a wise person. Give me some advice. I can confirm that Susan worked where she worked. I can check her LinkedIn. I can, check her resume. But we came out early on. This is a little tangential, but I think it's important. We're sure that we've been infiltrated by someone who wants to know what we're up to. And I joke that, bring it, because if you're not doing good work and you're not acting with integrity, you're not going to last anyway. And there's nothing to see here. We're not doing anything nefarious. It's really wholesome people having hard conversations about issues that impact every American. And so the ability to do that at scale, and I think a vital skill with Wikipedia is it teaches you to tolerate ambiguity. We have this concept on Wikipedia of consensus, which is that an argument has been made, counter arguments have been made, side arguments have been made, contextual arguments have been made, and you still need to decide what to do. And you have to move forward despite the fact that you don't have unanimity. You almost never have unanimity. But if people are bought into the process of that discourse, they feel valued, and they feel valued enough that they'll support the outcome even if they disagree with it. And we have those debates. We have debates constantly. Should we be more bold? Should we be more inviting? Should we be hard left? Should we reach for the across the aisle? We're constantly weighing these things. We're not like we don't have unanimity. We also have this very regular debate kind of about Well, it's basically about DEI. We have a debate about, do you name every marginalized groups or do you say every human matters? And in different contexts, we go back and forth on it. And for some people, it's essential that you name the systematic oppression of each group. And for other people, what matters is human dignity shared by all of us. And so we are constantly in this back and forth, but it doesn't make us weaker.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That makes sense. That makes sense. You're not, if you're waiting for unanimity, you're going to be waiting. You're not going to get anywhere.
Oh,
and, in some of those things. Yeah.
In politics, in Wikipedia, I mean, even with like your spouse or your partner, good luck finding unanimity with two people. And so we have to find ways to move forward with earnest disagreement and respect each other anyway. And I think that's something that I definitely learned at Wikipedia, because I had a distributed team on 4 continents, and we were like not family in the sense that we don't pay each other for work, but we were like family in the sense that we were there for each other through ups and downs over 6 years. And there was laughter and there was great work done. Again, I'm not saying it was like a family. I'm saying it was just a team. We had each other's back, and being able to create that virtually, is not easy. But if you come to our Friday call and you hear the way people talk about their joys and their wins and their struggles and their losses, and then just dive in and tear apart these thorny political issues, it's impressive. And it's exactly who we are.
Yeah.
Right. There's some of that level of respect, like respecting each other enough to hear each other out. And having been heard out, you could be like, you know what? I didn't always get my way, but they listened to me and we discussed my point of view. And that level of respect builds team.
And you don't get that in the modern political discourse almost anywhere, which is why this group is, people say it's made them feel physically better, psychologically better. Being a part of it. It's not a cult. We're not a political cult, but it feels good to do this work with decent people who you care for and respect. I'm almost going to get choked up, but and also another thing about virtual work, and this is totally unexpected, is it allows those who are unemployed to participate. And those folks sometimes feel worthless or valueless because they don't have a job, but now they can be extremely valuable to this mission. Also, people with disabilities can't always hold down a full-time job, but make tremendous intelligence and insight and skills to contribute.
Skills. Yeah.
We have more people who are disabled than I would have expected, and it's because we are remote and virtual and distributed.
Right.
Yeah.
Susan, we'll get back to a question for you. If we can move on a little bit here. When I was looking through some of the open positions, there were some for community liaisons. And I know we talked a little bit pre-show about groups that are working in specific policy areas, or is this more like, explain what you're looking for there?
The community liaison, who we're now, I think, calling the outreach chief, is someone who would help really be in charge of researching what groups we could collaborate with, we would share resources. Take a look at this policy that we've done, and we can take a look at what you've done and see if we can support each other in some way. That way, perhaps we can share staff with them even, if you've got some researchers or some subject matter experts, so do we. We've got them in a different area. So the collaboration would establish good relationships. It would establish the fact that we can further spread the word out, with these other groups from literally around the country, and also just support another group that's doing something worthy that we're doing. So that, in essence, is the responsibility of the position, to research those types of groups, nonprofits, allied groups, what have you, and reach out to them, try to establish communication with them, and a relationship with them that would be mutually beneficial. So I suppose you could call it almost like a networking type of position, but we think of it as outreach so that it's something that would really help get the word out about Project 2029, but also would benefit other groups that have similar goals, because we would help them and they would help us.
Yeah, to the point of, go ahead.
Oh, I mean, we're looking for allies and we're looking for partners. We're not networking at a conference or a meet and greet. We're looking to turn, and we don't have to be the hub. We don't have to be the center point, the focal point for an issue, but we want to tie in. If we're doing a healthcare policy, we want to talk to doctors. We want to talk to people who have worked in or even run hospitals. We want to talk about people who work in public health and have made policy. Similarly, when we haven't gotten there yet, but when we focus on our climate policy, we're going to want to talk to environmental scientists and environmental lawyers. And, the only way the goal is not to contain all the expertise ourselves, but to get a really, really, really well-oiled team that can then branch out, pull in, share out. Because 2025 had those 400 people. We are not going to have 400, people in suits. We're going to have, if you look at all the networks we're connected to, it's tens and tens and tens of thousands of people. Now, I can't claim them as members, but we hope to activate them as allies and partners.
Right.
Good. Fantastic.
So there's a person who would be in charge of that, and there's also a deputy position so that person isn't working alone. And I think there's one or two other people that also help with some of the research and background on that. So it's an important part of our project that, we really want to strengthen and, put a lot more muscle behind, because as Jake said, it's mutually beneficial. We get the word out about us. We share our resources with them. They share some of theirs with us. Research, publicity, just spreading the word about who we are and what we're doing. And also, it's when we get, say, as Jake mentioned, if we have some doctors who are reviewing our healthcare policy before it goes out, and some other established medical organizations, it's a good credibility for us. It boosts our own credibility to be able to say, well, we're allied with these groups and we've worked with these people to vet, what we're going to release before we release it. So that's also the added benefit to our efforts in that area.
Cool. Any closing thoughts from either of you two?
Well, I'd just really like to thank you for having us on the podcast today. It's been great talking about this with you, and I really appreciate that you did a lot of research on our group and asked some really great questions. And to reiterate, we hope to get the word out more and more on Project 2029, and we're really happy to have more people contact us about possibly volunteering. Thank you, Susan. Jake?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you got to have us back. We're just scratching the surface. There's so much to talk about. You've gotten a really good sense of the ethic and the intensity of care that we are bringing to this work. But I want to dig into policies and proposals and plans with you. I want to bring on one of our policy chiefs and dive even deeper, because these issues are, they're so hard, and yet there's a lot of common sense you can bring to them. And I think we're trying to really navigate the kind of where hard meets common sense, and to live there in that zone. The other thing I would say is, like, if you're going out to protest and making signs, that's really great. And if you're calling your senators, that's even better. And if you're just reading the news, it's not that it's not good enough. It doesn't feel good. Like, find a way, whether it's with us or even just volunteering at a food bank, like find a way to connect to humans right now. That's what we need. We need connection. And I'm thrilled that this group provides that human connection in this dark time for me, but everybody needs it. Or else you just and that doesn't feel good.
Yeah. It helps. I found for me, it's like sustained hope, to be constantly involved in this. And I think that's really important, as Jake said, to have that human connection, even if it's virtual.
Yeah. And action cures anxiety. Right.
Absolutely.
And when you're the one doing the action, you know firsthand that, hey, somebody is doing something about this. And I know because I am the one doing it. That's all for today's show. Thank you for listening. The part I enjoy most about this show is knowing that people get something out of it. So please like, comment, and subscribe. You can also head over to the About page on my site, adulting.media, to find out more. Once again, thanks for listening and all the best.